Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 18th, 2025 council meeting. As a reminder, the meeting is live streamed, recorded, and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound website at www.parrysound.ca. There was no closed meeting before the open session, and I'd like to acknowledge at this time that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. And before we get into the meeting, we're going to watch a short video.
Hey, I know it's in our nature to cut a guy some slack, give him the benefit of the doubt, like maybe he was confused or just joking or just maybe really needed a double-double. But this isn't that guy. These aren't those people, and those are not the Rockies. They make a lot of mistakes. They mistake our modesty for meekness, our kindness for consent, our nation for another star on their flag, and our love of a hot, cheesy poutine with their love of a hot, cheesy Putin. They think they can bully us, threaten us, and push us around, but they do not know us. That artificially drawn line they keep talking about, not artificial, and it's not on a map. It's right here. This is the land that Terry ran, the land that Gord sang about. This is the birthplace of peanut butter and ketchup chips and yoga pants. It is the land of universal health care and the bench clearing for all, of innovation and optimism and getting her done. This is the land of the peacekeeper and the Shawinigan handshake. Are we perfect? No, but we are not the 51st anything. We are the first to unite in a crisis, the first to build bridges, not walls, and the first to stand on guard for thee. My name is Jeff, and we are Canadian. Thank you.
Yeah. Figured it was probably, for this particular meeting, probably rather fitting to have something like that. I think in this time we're we don't have the same partner we used to have, and we don't have a good dance partner. The dance doesn't go well. So I think it's opportune time for Canadians to pull together, show the strength that we are Canadian, and that we shall remain Canadian. So thank you for indulging that. All right, on with the meeting. Let's see here where we're at now. Mover and seconder for the agenda, please. Councillor Keith and Councillor McDonald. That the council agenda for March 18th, 2025 be approved as circulated, but are there any modifications or additions to the agenda? Nope. Okay. All in favor then? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? No. Okay. Mover and seconder for the minutes. Councillor Keith and Councillor Ashford, that the minutes from the regular council meeting held March 4th, 2025 be approved as circulated. Any comments, questions, corrections on the agenda? No? All, sorry, on the minutes. All in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a few minutes to hold a public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to a proposed official plan amendment under Section 17 of the Planning Act and a zoning amendment under Section 34 of the Planning Act. And I need a mover and seconder to move this forward. Councillor Borneman and Councillor McCann. Would you now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open? All in favor? That's carried. Ms. Johnson, can you explain how the public was notified of this application?
Yes, Mayor McGarvey, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters, and as a notice was posted on the property in accordance with the Ontario Planning Act. Notice is therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rand, can you explain the purpose of the proposed applications?
Thank you, Your Worship. The proposed applications were submitted in order to facilitate the construction of an apartment dwelling on the subject lands, which are located at 12 and 14 Joseph Street. If approved, the official plan amendment would allow for standalone residential, being residential use without a commercial use, and would also increase the density permissions on the subject lands from the existing 75 units per hectare to 125 units per hectare. Staff would also note that the notice was circulated for the application, which indicated that 120 units per hectare were being applied for. However, the applicant has clarified that they are seeking 125 units per hectare. Staff are of the opinion that given the nature of the increase of the proposed number of units, that further public notice is not required under the Planning Act as a result of this change. With respect to the zoning amendment application, the proposed change of zoning would change the zoning of the subject lands from highway commercial to highway commercial subject to special provision 26-142 and would be subject to a holding provision. The special provision would permit apartment dwellings as a use and would also limit commercial uses on the subject property and would implement the following special provisions. The minimum frontage for an apartment dwelling shall be 70 meters instead of the required 30 meters. The maximum number of residential units shall be 80 instead of the currently permitted 48. The minimum size of a standard parking space shall be 2.75 meters by 6 meters instead of the required 3 by 6. The minimum side yard for an apartment dwelling shall be 3 meters instead of the required 6 meters. The minimum rear yard for an apartment dwelling shall be 8.9 meters instead of the required 10 meters. The maximum height for an apartment dwelling shall be 16.8 meters instead of the required 10.5 meters. And all other requirements of the multiple residential zone would apply to an apartment dwelling on the subject lands. For the holding provision, this may be removed once a traffic impact statement and functional servicing report have been received to the satisfaction of the town, as well as the lands merging on title. And all other requirements of the highway commercial zone shall continue to apply with respect to the subject lands. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rand. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting an official plan or zoning amendment. If a public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound in respect of a proposed zoning amendment does not make written submissions to the Council before it provides or refuses to provide a decision, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. And at this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of this proposed application for a zoning amendment? If so, please identify yourself by name and give your address. Yes, Mr. Morgan. Welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, let me just lower my digital hand here. Thanks for having me. I've appeared before your council on a number of occasions in the past. My name is Josh Morgan. I'm a registered professional planner. I'm here today representing Nizar and Rafika Mawani. Nizar is joining us virtually as well. Thanks to Jeremy for his fulsome overview of the application. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not going to go through the whole thing so as not to be redundant, but would I have your permission, or maybe you could explain to me, would you rather me share my screen, or would the clerk prefer to share his or her screen and then just advance the slides accordingly? I'm happy either way.
Mr. Morgan, please share your screen. Thanks.
Okay, thank you
It's
very
set up
much.
for screen sharing.
Okay. Okay, can everybody see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So just to bring to light the location of the property, and I'm sure members of the public that are watching or are present and also members of council are familiar with the properties. We're here tonight to speak of 12 and 14 Joseph Street, which is illustrated on your screen here. It's on the west side of Joseph Street. The nearest, I suppose, major intersection, I'll call it, is to the south of the subject property. That would be Isabella and Joseph Street. And of course, just to the south of the subject properties and to the west of the subject properties, Parrystown High School. Just a zoomed out overview of the location of the property. And so you'll see that the property is the properties. There are two properties. They are currently separate. Of course, should these applications be approved and following the approval of the site plan application, these two properties would be merged so that they would no longer be separately conveyable. The properties are vacant with the exception of some storage buildings on the property, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with after driving past the site. And currently, the property, a portion of the property on the south is used for some bus pickup and drop off in favor of the high school. And so there is a driveway that exists onto Joseph Street currently. Okay, so the proposed development, as Mr. Rand mentioned, is a 5-story, 80-unit residential apartment building. And Mr. Mawani has committed to provide 15% of those units as affordable. And when we use the term affordable in this case, we're referring to affordable as defined by the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Commission. The development, if approved, will be serviced by municipal water and sanitary services. We have had multiple meetings with senior staff at the town of Parrystown, which I greatly appreciate. And those meetings were helpful to identify where the services are currently, what the capacities are in this area of the town. And we're confident, and this confidence will be illustrated in our future site plan submission, that there are appropriate services to accommodate this proposed development. Of course, the development will be accessed via Joseph Street. There are, as the site plan is currently drafted, there are 108 parking spaces to service the proposed 80 units. And there will be at least 30 bicycle parking spaces provided as well. So this site plan that we submitted is quite frankly a work in progress. This shows the buildings kind of in an L shape at the back of the site, but some site plan updates are occurring almost as we speak, quite honestly. And we're thinking that the building will now be more oriented to the north side of the site with more of a presence on the road, so as to reduce some of the feel and the presence of the parking at the road frontage. But the proposal will continue to be the building will continue to be 5 stories in height and 80 units. So I thought this slide was important because it just provides a visual sort of contextual visual, that is, for how the height that we're proposing, which is 16.8 meters or 5 stories, how that would relate to the new high school just immediately to the south. So the new high school, we understand, is approximately 10 meters in height, and this building is proposed at 16.8 meters. So the property is designated, as Mr. Rand mentioned, in the town of Parrystown's official plan as Joseph Street mixed use, and the property is zoned highway commercial, which is the C3 zone by the town of Parrystown zoning bylaw. And as Mr. Rand mentioned, the purpose of we have 2 applications before you this evening. The purpose of the official plan amendment application is to redesignate the entirety of the 2 properties to a site-specific Joseph Street mixed-use designation. And what this site-specific designation would permit, it would permit standalone residential. It would allow for the building to be only residential, 5 stories in height, with a density of 125 units per hectare and a height of 16.8 meters. And Mr. Rand has already been through what the exact provisions of this site-specific zoning bylaw would be, but we would be seeking to keep the property within the C3 zone, but that it would be a site-specific C3 zone, so a highway commercial zone that only applies to this property. And as Mr. Rand mentioned, should council approve the zoning bylaw amendment application, we would be seeking council to approve the zoning bylaw amendment application with a hold on it. And the hold would be conditional upon site plan approval. And it would be during the site plan approval process that we will be submitting a geotechnical report, detailed architectural elevations, stormwater management plan, functional servicing report, landscape plan, etc. This is just a zoning matrix or a zoning table, as we call it in the planning world, which just lists the provisions of the highway commercial zone in the middle, and then those provisions that would apply to the site-specific zone. We've highlighted those provisions that we would be seeking site-specific relief for. So of course, with every planning application that our office submits, we must first have regard for the provincial planning statement, which was adopted and came into full force and effect by the province in October of 2024, replacing the previous provincial policy statement. Now we're calling it the provincial planning statement. And after looking at the provincial planning statement, of course, then we get into the town of Parry Sound's official plan, and then the town of Parry Sound zoning bylaw. So as I mentioned, and we have now assembled our full consulting team, including an architect, a geotechnical engineer, a civil engineer, a traffic engineer, and also a landscape architect and someone to prepare the lighting plan. And these, the detailed design of these studies is well underway. So just to conclude, the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications would facilitate the development of an 80-unit residential apartment building on a vacant parcel of land that will be serviced by municipal water and wastewater services. It is my opinion that the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications are in the public interest and that they represent good land use planning. I've reached this conclusion for the following reasons. First of all, it's my opinion these applications are consistent with the policies provided in the provincial planning statement. It's my opinion that the proposal conforms with the general intent and policy direction of the town of Parry Sound's official plan, and that the applications maintain the general intent of the town of Parry Sound's zoning bylaw. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I know that if there are questions from the public or are questions from council, that I, as the applicant's agent, don't have an opportunity to address those tonight. But what I can tell you is that I will be making notes here in my office. And if there are questions that arise in the meeting this evening, I will be responding to Mr. Rand directly with answers to those questions. Thank you very much.
That's appreciated, Mr. Morgan. Thank you. Now, at this time, is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed application for a zoning amendment? Anyone else online that? I don't think anyone in the audience here is. Huh? Okay, I don't see anyone else, so does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this proposed zoning amendment? I don't see anything. Should ask one more time though. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this proposed application for a zoning amendment? Nope. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Rand, have there been any letters received as a result of this notice?
Comments have been received by the building department, which indicate that the minimum lot area may need to be recognized via the special provision. Comments received by the fire chief indicate no concerns with the proposal. Comments received by the wastewater department indicate that there is currently inadequate sewer service to the subject lot. And planning would note further to that comment that there have been discussions with the applicant about the need to extend sewer services to John Street as curbside connection is not currently available. And no other comments have been received on the application.
Okay, thank you. May I have a mover and a seconder then to close? Councillor McCann, Councillor Boleski. We now declare the public meeting closed. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yep, you too. Thank you. Okay, any questions of staff? Okay, Counselor Borneman, Counselor McDonald, and then Counselor Keith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure if Mr. Bonanza is with us tonight or not, Mr. Cairns, so I'll start with you. Weather's better, people are out walking. The new stretch of sidewalk on William Street, there appears to be some spalling, pitting going on. Is there to be some kind of sealant applied to the concrete in that area, or is there a warranty on the work that's been done? You know, it was a fairly pricey bit of work. Want to make sure that it's going to last the way it's intended to.
Through you, Your Worship. So I know Mr. Benaza is aware of the issue, and there is a warranty holdback on our contracts. So I believe I can't confirm that he's already contacted the contractor to return and deal with the issues as soon as we can. I realize we've had some really warm days. We're about to have some really cold nights as well. So as much as we'd like to move straight into spring, but we will be dealing with those issues. Yes.
And not a follow-up with that issue, but a second question. I noticed again, Mr. Cairns, that at the Bobby Orr Community Center, again, the stone pillars have taken a bit of a beating through the winter, whether that's part of our snow removal process or what, I'm not entirely sure, but this seems to happen periodically. I'm wondering if there's a better fix, if we can find something that isn't going to require attention pretty much every spring.
Through Your Worship, certainly that's something we will take a look at. It's definitely not part of our normal process, but given their proximity to the areas that are maintained occasionally, unfortunately, weather conditions get to a point where the operators can't necessarily see, or the machines react differently from snow buildup and that sort of thing. So we'll certainly look at something that's more robust and won't require the same level of repair.
Yeah, I wasn't throwing stones at the operator.
No.
I wasn't intending to. I'm afraid I'd probably be in worse shape if I.
It was a rough winter this year on everything. Counselor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. I guess this would be for Mr. Cairns. I had somebody mention to me that they noticed that the town was still doing snowbank removals. Is that still happening, or was it just a one-off that there were trucks out?
Through Your Worship, so we certainly aren't doing to the same level. There may be some areas that we're doing it for to accommodate stormwater flow, that sort of thing. I'm not sure of the specific areas, but we are definitely no longer undertaking snow removal the way we were 4 weeks ago.
Okay, Counselor Keith.
Thank you. Mr. Cairns, as you just mentioned, the word stormwater flow, and this time of the year where we've had the rain now, and there has been some concerns of flooding in some of the area. What's the situation here as to, do we figure everything is under control? If we do have, like they're talking about a lot of rain later tomorrow, what's the situation, please?
Through Your Worship, so there was a watershed statement issued. So I would certainly caution everyone, just looking at the Seguin River, at the Cascade Dam, the amount of water that's coming over from Mill Lake. I really hope it doesn't rain a lot, but there is still an awful lot of snowpack around that will be feeding the waterways. So there is always a potential. So far, so good. Lakeland does control the water levels as much as they're able to. But I did notice, particularly this morning, there is an awful flow coming through the Seguin River. So certainly we encourage everyone to use caution around the waterways. And if you still have snow around your house, you may want to move that as far away as you can, just to deal with your own property issues and that sort of thing. But thankfully, we didn't get the heavy rainfalls that were forecast previously. So a tempered melt would be welcomed at this point.
Councillor Ashford?
Just one more. I was wondering, what it would take to get the lines painted on the main street by like May 2/4 long weekend. And I know it was we're getting into that time again that people are gonna start asking. And it was a bit of an issue. It seemed like last year it was summer by the time with the weather and all the different things, by the time we had them painted. But I thought if we can figure out what it would take to get it done by that point, and it could be cost prohibitive, it could be something that's we'd have to hire more. So it could be anything that would require that might make us realize it's not something that is achievable. But what would entail? What would we have to do now in order to make sure that May 2/4 the lines on Main Street are just looking sharp and everybody's ready for the season?
Through your worship, so a number of those things that you were mentioning. Control of the weather would be wonderful. The paint has to go down when it's dry. It has to be warm enough. Typically, especially the downtown is done overnight, which is particularly challenging in the spring with dew. God forbid frost. So, and we do not paint our own lines on the road. So we hire a contractor. Provincial Line Markings has the contract with us. They literally do most of the province. And unfortunately, it's a lot like sweeping. Everybody wants it at the same time. So they typically move through the province in a systematic manner, keeping in mind that weather dictates how much they're able to get done at any given time, and they will actually leapfrog throughout the province depending on the weather forecast. So there are times when areas, not only us, but many of the clients will get passed over in order to keep their staff working. So for us to be able to control it, we would need to buy specialized equipment, vehicles, and have staff available to do those tasks at the appropriate time. So we do try to get it done as early as possible. We have to make sure sweeping is done first, so the paint stays where we put it, and then we have to cross our fingers and hope the temperatures and the humidity cooperate when the line painting crews are coming through. Last year, I think we ran into some rather wet periods in the spring that were just a nightmare for everybody in the road maintenance industry, trying to get those lines down before too long into the summer. Unfortunately, the products don't last very long. So by the time spring rolls around, everybody's pretty much ready for a reapplication. In some cases, the higher traffic areas of the province have to be applied multiple times throughout the season. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Correspondence, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Your Worship. There are just a couple items of correspondence. The first is a motion that came from the Waterfront Advisory Committee indicating that it supports in principle the Parry Sound Downtown Beautification Plan for 2025-2026, as was presented at the Waterfront Advisory Committee's meeting. And I expect perhaps some of that will be relayed to Council this evening. The second item, well, there are a couple items that are similar, a resolution from Seguin Township and a resolution from Wawa in support of the Buy Canadian resolution that the town of Parry Sound passed several meetings ago. And that's it for correspondence.
Okay, thank you. Next are deputations, and our first deputation is Jordan Nickerson, Lakeland Power, efforts to decrease outages. Welcome, Mr. Nickerson. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. How's that?
There you go. You're good now.
Hi, good evening, Mayor McGarvey and councillors. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. And Rebecca, I can share my screen, you said?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, sorry. So we've put together a presentation. Oh, share, here we go. Everybody see that?
Nope. Something's happening.
Is that better?
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, let me try this. Okay. So is everybody seeing just the main slides, or is my notes in there and everything too?
There is a next slide showing after, so no notes.
No notes, okay. Oh, but you can see this here?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Okay, hold on, I gotta fix this. Sorry, everybody. Nice. Okay, how's that?
Yeah, just need to enlarge the screen, that's all.
Okay.
It's back where you were. It just
Okay, we'll go on. I know there's a bit of a
just
time
go on.
crunch.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for giving us the chance to speak on this. We'd like to discuss how we reduce outages and response time using modern technology. My name is Jordan Nickerson, Director of Operations at Lakeland Power. I've been there for about 12 years now, and with me is Andrew McDonald. Andrew, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I am the operations supervisor here at Lakeland Power, and we'll be assisting Jordan tonight through our presentation and talk about the emergency response portions as well.
Thank you. So our agenda, you know what, we might skip over the about Lakeland Power. I think everybody's pretty well aware. But for the most part, we'd like to talk about modernizing the electrical grid, what the benefits are, the investments that we've made, both historical, what we're planning in the future, how that relates to emergency response, and then we'll briefly cover power outages and preventative maintenance after, and then move into a Q&A if necessary. So just to clarify what grid modernization is, any time that we're upgrading the electrical grid to incorporate newer or more advanced technologies, replacing outdated components to improve overall efficiency, utilizing supervisory control and data acquisition systems, or SCADA, which we'll refer to it as from here on out, adopting smart grid technology for real-time data monitoring, control, and automation of grid operations. The ability to incorporate renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, and hydroelectric into the grid, and data analytics to predict energy usage patterns and optimize grid performance. So what do we get out of it? Faster response times and decision making, very important. Real-time monitoring, remote access and control. We can turn the power off and on. Improved reliability and stability, and data logging and historical analysis. Some of the investments we've made in Parry Sound over the last, I guess since 2014. First thing in 2015, the initial SCADA implementation for the majority of Parry Sound. The upgrade at MS3 on William Street. The Cascade Generation Station upgrade in 2018. In 2021, the Speedier project came online. And we're going to cover all of these. MS1 on water and fire, that was done in MS3. 2024, our affiliate Lakeland Solutions installed several EV charger locations in Parry Sound. And in 2025, we're planning to retrofit MS5 on Parry Sound Road, close to Railway Avenue. Total investment since the 2014 merger totals around $35 million. Just a quick rundown of our SCADA implementation. So in 2025, that's when we kind of kicked it off in Parry Sound. We got coverage in the majority of the town. And prior to that, with Parry Sound Power, they had no SCADA capabilities. This is just a quick snapshot of what it looks like. So this is the town of Parry Sound. The different colors on the map represent different feeders. And this is very useful in storm situations because when the power turns off, we get different color lines. And it's a really good visual. When we get into a storm situation and kind of, chaos ensues, it's very helpful for us. It's another snapshot of what our SCADA looks like. So we have data coming from all of our substations, essentially. So this is MS4 on Church Street. And we're able to get a lot of information from this, including power quality, the usage, whether the power is off or on, things like that. In 2016, we did a complete rebuild, essentially, of the MS3 substation on William Street. We installed smart switches. We gained remote control of 42% of the town, so 1,600 customers or homes and businesses. Customer for us is basically a meter, so it might be one customer could be a home with 6 people, essentially. We replaced the aging assets, and we increased capacity by upgrading the transformer and increased the resiliency of that substation with a modern underground design. So we'll just give you a quick idea of what that upgrade looked like. This is in 2009. We have a lot of overhead structures, older poles, and this is what it looks like today. So it's simplified quite a bit. It's all underground except for the main feed coming in overhead here. But it gives us a lot of flexibility, and it reduces a lot of exposure. So whether that's animals, storms, it's very resilient. In 2021, the Speedier project came online. It was actually the first in Ontario of its kind, which is a in front of the meter microgrid. That came with 5 smart switches, a 500 kilowatt solar farm, 1.25 megawatt battery, energy storage system. And actually it's been it's been going very well. There's 165 customers in that area, McFarland, Emily, Great North Road, and some surrounding areas that benefit from that battery backup. So when Lakeland Power's service goes out, or Hydro One service, the main feeder coming from Parry Sound Transformer Station from Hydro One, this battery will keep those customers online. In 2023, we upgraded the MS1 substation on Water and Fire, very similar to the MS3 rebuild. We installed smart switches, gained an additional control and visibility of 21% of Parry Sound, 800 customers. We replaced the old assets, increased the resiliency with an underground design, and actually that was the last remaining portion of Parry Sound that we didn't have SCADA visibility on. So following this project, we have full visibility from our office or from wherever, from home, following this project. And that includes our on-call staff. This is in 2009, similar design, and this is the simplified version in 2023. Mostly underground. There's some overhead structure still that had to remain here just because of the design of the transformer itself. Replace the poles, etc. So more resilient, simpler, and it's been working out very well. 2025, we're planning to install smart switches at the Parry Sound MS5 substation. That's on Parry Sound Road, close to railway. We'll gain remote capability to an additional 10% of Parry Sound, so about 400 customers. We'll get the benefits of the increased monitoring that we have at the other stations. And actually, after this investment, Parry Sound will be our highest percentage of smart switch connected customers and feeders in all of Lakeland's municipalities that we service. Emergency response. So we're going to tie this into how this helps us during emergency response, and we understand that there's been discussions around the response, obviously, since there's no longer crews in Parry Sound. I think that's no secret, and we understand that some people aren't happy about that, and Mr. Dave Thompson and Andrew McDonald been having some very productive conversations around that. So I'm just going to turn it over to Andrew to discuss that.
Thank you, Jordan. If you want to advance the slide. So the biggest thing that we recognize that came out of it, one is communication. And that's communication that exists between fire dispatch as well as our own dispatch. So we've given a direct number now in which both dispatches will talk directly to each other. The benefits to this is eliminating the wait times and obviously making that direct contact with the people who need to be informed. It'll generate what we call a ticket, which we see, and that ticket is then distributed through our operations department, both to the on-call staff, to Jordan, to myself, and a couple other relevant members. What that does for us is that it notifies everybody so that everybody's in the loop given emergency situations, and things can get escalated quite quickly when everybody is notified. And it also ensures, this is the largest part that we've realized after talking to Mr. Dave Thompson, is that ensuring the location, the nature of the call, the severity, everything is properly conveyed to the right people. We want to understand exactly what's going on and where it's happening, as it relates to both geographic location within Parry Sound, as well as our own number, as it would relate to our GIS system for our own operations staffs to then respond accordingly. Next slide, please, Jordan. So as Jordan mentioned, with the implementation of so much of our SCADA technology, we have most of the control over Parry Sound. Often what this allows us to do is we're receiving notifications, typically before we even receive notifications from the local fire dispatch. We understand that something is happening. It'll send us a SCADA notification of that, either what we would consider to be an auto reclose or to have a feeder locked out, as we call it, where the power is off. We would see that via the SCADA technology and start dispatching crews accordingly, knowing that given whatever might have happened in the field, likely we're then notified shortly after by the local fire or a member of the public. So grid modernization, like I said, has gained the ability to remotely isolate feeders using that SCADA technology. And upon direct confirmation of incident and the severity taking place, Lakeland Power can isolate the location of the incident and then confirm it with the staff members who are on site, whether that's the fire chief or whoever it may be that we have taken down in that number. These faults that are usually caused by these incidents, whether it's motor vehicle accidents, whether it's trees, pole fires, anything that would create a fault scenario, we're able to see it through our SCADA technology. We would see it through current flow, and we would have the ability to make decisions on the fly at that point. Next slide, if I could, please, Jordan. Pole fires are a very common one. We do see that in the springtime. Likely our numbers have gone down dramatically since a lot of our re-insulation practices through a lot of capital rebuilding. I will touch on that here shortly after this. But what the circumstances that we're given, pole fires generally create when electrical energy is bypassing a dielectric material. That dielectric material will deteriorate through dielectric material used on our switches, which operate our transformers. Dielectric material is used on insulators. Any of that material, as it's affected by UV deterioration, salt contamination. And when I say salt contamination, one of the challenges that we've seen recently is the use of brines and different forms of salt as they're being used on the road. Thankfully, the town of Parry Sound has chosen primarily to use the pickled sand, as we've come to realize, and we do not see that as such a major hazard, but we do see it around more MTO roadways. The manufacturing defects, that's something that naturally I think we can all understand. We do see a small percentage of that, but not very much. And aging infrastructure. So like I mentioned, a lot of our capital initiatives that we've taken on have pushed a lot of that out. We've re-insulated tremendous portions of Parry Sound. And then severity often appears much worse when electrical energy is burning into the combustible materials. It does typically generate a lot of smoke. It generates a lot of smoke we see with pressure treated poles, the green that use the CCA pressure treat. It does generally, and just that time of year generally with the wetness and all the other stuff that comes with spring. If you could advance the slide, Jordan. So as we're talking about all of this and, with isolation of feeders and stuff as requested, there's a couple things that we need to consider when these things do happen. So the big highlight to take into account here is when life or limb is threatened and it's an immediate danger. Typically is what it boils down to for the isolation of a feeder. And the considerations to make to make that call on the spot in those emergency situations. You have to understand that there's going to be widespread effects when we isolate a feeder and open it up from our SCADA system. We have everything from traffic lights to the customers that could be involved. And the areas that are affected could be varying depending on the feeder size, the feeder type, and where it is in town. So, like I mentioned, traffic lights, businesses, the hospital, and all the residents could all be affected by this. So is there an immediate urgency that requires the electrical hazard to be removed? That is the biggest concern. Is there electrical energy in the immediate vicinity of that emergency? And does it need to be addressed right away? So these examples that we've seen historically are Zoom booms, genie lifts, any aerial device for that matter, that is in contact with the power lines. Oftentimes, like I mentioned, our feeders will see this because that is a fault scenario typically. And we would see it on the SCADA and notice that there is a problem there. But ideally, we do wait until there is a member of the public or fire services that do make contact with us to guarantee that's what has happened. We can never guarantee isolation, just on SCADA alone. And then motor vehicle accidents with trapped victims and wires down is another common one. And I did just want to highlight a recent event where SCADA has been a benefit. And that was the incident that occurred last night in Gravenhurst with the unfortunate gentleman who did reach into a transformer station. We saw from our side on SCADA as well, we saw a drop of the M21 44 kV feeder immediately at 5:20 while fire department and fire services removed the victim from the station last night, and he was transported to hospital. If we can advance the slide, please. Power outages and maintenance as it relates to it. So it all ties together with what we're doing. We wanted to highlight sort of the high level stuff of what we do and what we're trying to achieve at Lakeland Power. One, to eliminate trouble calls, and two, just to create that more resilient system that ties so perfectly with the SCADA. Adverse weather, it's something that we're seeing more and more. It has been a crazy past 2 years. There are multiple things that we now have to take into account. No longer is it the lightning strikes. We are seeing high levels of snow, high winds, and many things that we're being prepared for. Tree contacts are quite a large problem. It seems like in our area, fallen trees do fall across the primary. Even one most recently in Parry Sound where a beaver did chew the bottom of the tree and it came over. Equipment failure, like I mentioned, there's multiple factors to equipment failure. We do have a capital project to replace all porcelain switches, in which we will be swapping them out with polymer. And that's to eliminate the hairline cracks that exist into them. And then with freeze thaw, we often see porcelain switches crack and fail, causing a power outage to that customer that will be affected from the transformer. Poles and transformers, again, there's a multitude of things that can affect them from the tree contacts and stuff like that, but we do have the new modern standards that we are slowly adapting to as we change and we create these large capital renewal projects. We do adapt to the closed construction with steel chicken wings and many other applications to create a stronger and more resilient system. Foreign interference is obviously one that we can't control either. We do our best to design pole lines that are generally keep this into mind, but pole lines do often run across in near proximity to the roads. Motor vehicle accidents and animal contacts. Squirrels often getting across switches between a point of potential as well as a grounded point, causing that device to open up. Next slide, if we could, please. Inspections are tremendous for us. We're regulated to do multiple inspections throughout the course of a year on both pole and most overhead and underground infrastructure. Infrared scanning is a large one for us that you will see in the following slides. We do conduct it annually, and then we will, based on the reports that come back to us, the severities are all classified to high, medium, or low severity, depending on the thermal variance between ambient temperature and the hottest point on the in the imagery. Proactive replacements, like I mentioned before, is changing out porcelain switches and trying to get ahead of the curve, which our performance is often measured by when the thermal imaging comes around again the following year. We classify and figure the numbers of instances that we do have across our service territory. And tree trimming. Tree trimming is a tremendous thing for us, one that we discuss quite often. The trim cycle rotates every 6 years across our different zones, and that can be found currently on our website. We are currently in zone 3 for our trim cycle, and that involves us trimming that 10-meter radius around all of our primary infrastructure to eliminate those tree contacts and eliminate a lot of the hazards and eliminate most primarily what we see in the large snowfall events, with the white pines primarily holding so much snow that they droop down into our lines. If you could advance the slide, please, Jordan. Images that you see in front of you right now are the infrared scanning that we receive from the contractor that we've hired. They do indicate, as you'll notice on the image in the left, as SP1, that is the hot point of that device. Anything that impedes the flow of electricity, we consider resistance. Resistance generates heat, and heat can be seen through an infrared camera, so it is a tremendous attribute for us to have as they travel through our entire service territory. And then the image that you'll see on the right is the same image. However, it is, as you would see it with your own eye, indicating the spot. So an instance like this, we would likely change that switch out to resolve the issue and move forward from there. The next slide, please, Jordan. This is another example, again, just a different style switch. This is a switch that we consider an inline switch. Again, there's been heat generated at the hinge point. And that would be one that we would replace fully if the temperature difference was enough, or we would consider a maintenance program and where we would tighten the contacts and clean them up. Oxidization is a large part of heat as it relates to resistance and electrical work. So that's often something we do clean up as well. Advance the slide, please. So as both myself and Jordan have mentioned, the Lakeland Power is steadily invested in grid modernization in Parry Sound. There is a future plan that we have laid out for much more work to be taking place in Parry Sound. Both myself and Jordan are quite excited of what will take place in Parry Sound as we see a lot of development happening within the community, which we're quite happy to support and be a part of. And yeah, it's Lakeland continues to we're always looking for the new technology, and we are continuing to implement as much SCADA technology as we possibly can. We look forward to putting in more smart switches and seeing where the technology can take us as it advances so quickly in this industry. That's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thank you so much. Sorry that went probably a little bit longer than we intended, but thank you for your time.
I know we're going to have some questions here. I'll start off. Councillor Borneman has one in a second here, but how specific can you isolate an incident? By the house or by the neighborhood?
Right now, from the substation. So that could be, it depends how close the customer is to the substation. But generally right now, when we're isolating, there's 50 to 200 customers that may be without power.
Okay. And is there technology that you can define that even to a smaller area?
It's possible. It's definitely possible, but the cost of doing so would be astronomical.
Okay. Councillor Borneman.
So I want to thank you two for coming. I believe the merger with Lakeland has been a win-win. The 36 million that's been invested in Parry Sound, that's being paid for through the rates that are being charged here, though, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Some of it. So in the last 5 years, Lakeland Power has spent $5 million. The Cascade generating plant and Speedier, which is probably the largest expenditures, was funded through Lakeland Holding, our parent company, mostly through Bracebridge generation. So the ratepayers do not pay for that.
Okay. Can Lakeland assure me tonight that Parry Sound has adequate power supply going forward with the various developments that are being discussed in this community?
It depends where. So I will say, there is some concern right now, and we do have reconductoring project this year on Isabella Street. There is concern around the Parry Sound Mall, new high school, the new recreational center going in. There's some constraint there, and that will take some time to alleviate. Now, where we do have a plethora of capacity would be on the east side of town. So that would be fed from our MS5 substation. These are things that will be slowly alleviated as we invest in Parry Sound. I don't foresee any major short-term issues because as we know more about these developments, we will put these things in our capital budgets to make sure we're addressing them.
One more, Mr. Mayor. You spoke about better communication with respect to emergency response. It's still an hour's drive from Bracebridge or Huntsville to Parry Sound. So I wonder if you could back up. Fire chief calls, does he trigger a shut off if need be in response to a fire? Is this what I'm hearing now, or is it wait until a Lakeland person's on site to make a decision?
If it's a safety concern, a major safety concern, we did discuss with Dave. We gave him a number that essentially bypasses our directory. He also has my cell phone number and Andrew's cell phone number. If there were such an issue where somebody's safety's on the line, we would, no questions, we would shut the power off, and Dave Thompson would be able to make that call.
Thank you.
Councillor Bielanski.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the information. This may have been something you've discussed with Chief Thompson, but if there's a fire starts on a house or building, apartment building, say for example, or a private home, and the fire department can't get in to shut the main power supply off in the building, whichever maybe where the fire is, we used to just pull the meter. Are we saying now that we're gonna have to wait for somebody to come from Huntsville, Bracebridge, wherever, to come over to pull the meter to shut the power off for that building?
I would have to get back to you on that question. My understanding is that conversation was had in the past, and that my predecessors and superiors had that conversation with the town of Parry Sound. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth here, but my recollection of that conversation was that it was considered a safety concern from the fire department's point of view. Now, I could be incorrect in that. Again, I'd have to follow up on that.
Chief Thompson is, I think, has a comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the fire department will not pull meters. That is something that we're not trained to do. We're not professionals in doing something of that activity. So we do require Lakeland to pursue that course of action. As Jordan and Andrew have mentioned, the new involvements is with the remote isolation. And they mentioned that that we have the authority to call them on that. That's very serious decision to be making if we're going to be requesting Lakeland to cut power off to 100, 200 homes within the community. There's going to be very few fire department personnel who will have the authority to be able to make a call like that, to request that from Lakeland. It's a serious decision, and it is meant for life and limb situations, as Andrew described in his presentation.
So I guess then the question might revolve around this is are there contractors that could be in place that could do something like that instead of having to go through the process and wait?
That's something we'd have to look into.
Okay, you can do that?
I can look into it with our chief operating officer. Super,
thank you. Next, Councillor Bielanski, you got another follow-up?
Just one more comment, Your Worship. I think this is a very serious issue we've got ahead of us now, and from what I get is we're going to have to look into it. We have to look into it. I think it's something that needs to be looked into as soon as possible. One, we don't want firefighters standing around that can't go into a building or can't fight a fire because of power. And two, if you shut the main power off, there could be people in houses, and you're well aware of this. There could be people in houses that are on separate machines that need power, and you'd hate to shut their power off and have them in difficulty because of it. So I think it's something that we really need to, rather than just say that, let's look at it. Let's really look into it, like on an important, very, very important basis. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'll kind of go along the same lines about response times and contractors or private companies that could handle this in a maybe a quicker fashion than waiting for a crew to come across from Bracebridge. Is there an MOU or a possibility of an MOU to be set up with Hydro One even? Or barring that, having a small crew stationed here in Parry Sound?
So we did address that with Hydro One a few years ago. Their response was it's not feasible for them. They also have crews traveling similar distances. They said for Parry Sound, they could have people living in Aurelia, Midland, that may have to travel even greater distances than we do at times. They can't guarantee to have somebody within proximity. We also, the whole premise also assumes that the person that lives nearby is also on call. You can't guarantee that. We can't guarantee that. It's very expensive to guarantee that.
So I guess a follow-up would be possibility of maybe having a small crew station here in Parry Sound in this area. Has that been looked into?
It has been looked into. Again, that was something a little before my time. You know, respectfully, I believe that topic has been discussed many times. I would have to, again, defer that and discuss that with our chief operating officer.
Okay, thank you.
That has been discussed many times. Yeah. Councillor McCann. Is going to be anyone else has a question? No? Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for your deputation this evening. It's very interesting. I think I've learned a few things. A couple of comments and questions I'll make, and then I'll turn it back to you. A red flag went up for me when you said you had some concerns about constraints at the north end with all the development that's going on there. Can you speak a little bit more about that, and should we be concerned? And the second question is, I'm wondering, what does your landscape look like in terms of having crews in all of your catchment areas? It would just, and I know at the risk of sounding repetitious here, again, and it's been discussed about having crews here in the area. I just think it's a necessity. All the technology is great and it works fine, but sooner or later you need boots on the ground, and time is so precious. I'm just wondering how your other areas, other towns and cities that Lakeland provide service to, what that looks like, what they look like in terms of having crews in their own neighborhood, and why, and if we couldn't look forward to the same. So those two questions.
Okay. Thank you. I'll address the crews section first. We have 6 municipalities that we service, and our main operations is based out of Bracebridge. Now we have employees that are located mainly around the Huntsville Bracebridge, and we have one that's in the Parry Sound area. But if we have trouble calling Bracebridge, for example, you know, and the person in one of the people in Huntsville is on call. I know, for example, Casey, he's 45 minutes away. So it's actually not that different. Depending on where the people live, it can be quite similar. And I will say we don't have any other operations in any other municipalities. We do have that shop that Georgian Bay Biosphere is leasing off of us, and then we have our main operations in Bracebridge. And then with regard to capacity, we did budget this year to increase capacity in that area in response to the recreational center, the high school, the Tesla chargers that are planned. I believe they're wanting to construct those this year. And so we actually have a project on Isabella Street. We're replacing 28 poles and installing larger conductor along that street. So that will help with the constraint quite a bit this year.
Okay, thank you. I guess maybe just following up to this thing with the crews, then again, do you foresee, I mean, I know it always comes down to money and what shareholders are willing to deal with. Do you see a time in the future when you might increase your crews and rolling stock so that you can be in some of the other areas that you serve, like Parry Sound?
I wouldn't rule anything out necessarily. Thank you, by the way. I wouldn't rule anything out. However, again, I would have to defer that. That's a conversation much larger than me. As a utility, we're a regulated company, which means the money we spend is actually approved by the government, the Ontario Energy Board. They approve all of our funding, which means any additional costs we that we want to incur, they scrutinize it heavily, very, very heavily. There's a more and more of a push every year to be more efficient, to cut costs, to keep rates low for customers.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? I have one more, and that is, let's say we have a major power outage, but the Cascade Street Dam is functional, and because let's say the feeder lines that come into town or whatever are down, can we rotate power from the power dam to different areas of town, maybe an emergency shelter, or rotate it through different areas? Or is it just sort of a blanket go into the wild blue yonder of the electrical grid?
Thank you for that. I will say Lakeland has always been extremely interested in doing those types of projects. The reality of that is the regulations can be very strict, especially when dealing with Hydro One. So, for example, the Cascade Street generating plant, according to Hydro One's technical requirements, must trip off when the feeder from their transformer station trips off. And we have not been able to make any headway trying to get those changes made. So currently, it's simply not possible with the regulations.
Okay. Why I ask is I remember when I was a kid that they used to have the town in different grids. Now, mind you, there wasn't as much power used at that particular time, but basically it would roll around the town in about 20-minute sections or whatever, so that people had power for 20 minutes. Then you'd go dark. It would switch to another area and it would work around in about 3 or 4 different areas. Now, given that the town was smaller at that time as far as household size goes and probably electrical usage, it is a lot different. But I guess what you're alluding to then is that there are other controls in place now or policies in place that impede something like that then?
That's correct. In fact, Cascade Street was originally part of our proposal for the Speedier project. So rather than have just that battery, we wanted to include Cascade in that, which Cascade can service, 1,000 customers. It's, it has that much capacity, and it just, we were not able to make it work, unfortunately. And I hope that changes in the future. I truly do.
That would be wonderful. Sam, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your time and appreciate your candid answers, and hopefully that you can get back to our clerk, or yes, I guess it would be to the clerk, the answers to the different questions that we had. That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, our next deputation is April Denman, Executive Director for the Downtown Business Association, with an update, and I see you have friends with you. Welcome. Sorry, pardon? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor McGarvey, council and staff. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us time here tonight. I've brought with me the new chair of the DBA's Board of Directors, Meredith McCaffrey, the chair of the Beautification Committee, Brenda Ryan, and the social media for the DBA, Krista Holmes. With a united focus on the quality of the experience in downtown, the DBA's Board of Directors and 3 separate volunteer committees feel strongly about the importance of and are committed to re-engaging with staff to uphold all aspects of our MOU with the town of Parry Sound to create the best possible vision and experience for locals and visitors alike, which will go along with this plan. We'll continue to advocate for community partnerships that build strong relationships that benefit downtown businesses, including the town of Parry Sound, but also the Chamber, the CB&DC Community Futures, Economic Development, Parry Sound's Regional Tourism Organization, Explorers Edge, as well as other more really local organizations such as Community Support Services, Canadore College, the museum, and the library. We'll continue to take advantage of learning opportunities from partners from around the province, including other BIAs and OBIA, and seek new opportunities to bring in new technologies into our operations, such as our partners at Driftscape. So now, please welcome first Brenda Ryan with the DBA's Naturally Beautiful Beautification Plan.
Good evening, Mayor McGarvey and esteemed councillors. Thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. We're excited to show you what our plans are for 2025. Our committee, as April said, is a passionate and dedicated group of volunteers. We remain deeply committed to our mission of enhancing the beauty in our community. Our theme, as April mentioned, is naturally beautiful, and that guides all of our decision making. And we're excited to continue work on projects that will positively impact the downtown area. In recent years, our primary focus has been on sort of the James Street beautification, as you're aware. But this year we're shifting our attention to the waterfront and the connection between the waterfront and the downtown core. We'd like to create more of a seamless link and an attractive link between the waterfront and the downtown core. We've already consulted with Mr. Dave Thompson, who suggested collaborating with Mr. Mike Kearns on some of our projects to make sure that they align with the broader town objectives. We also, as you've heard, presented the plan to the Waterfront Advisory Committee, who received it positively. There were some comments. We'd like to assure you that we're also looking to go back to some of the members of the Waterfront Advisory Committee to make sure that things that we're proposing on the town dock don't impede the functionality of the dock. You'll see what we're proposing in our plans in a minute. And as well, in response to Councillor Keith's comments at the Waterfront Advisory Committee, we're reminded that making accessibility an important role in all of our plans is something that we're very dedicated to. So again, thank you so much for your support, your continued support, and we look forward to working together and collaborating to see this plan come to fruition. I believe you all have copies of it, so I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, and then if there's any questions, of course, I'm happy to answer them. So again, our focus as well is to really bring more people downtown to walk and enjoy the landscape of the downtown core, and again, make that link between the waterfront and the downtown core. So the projects include redesign of banners, which span throughout the downtown, There's plans to put some things on the town dock, which I'll go into. We have an area which we call the Dock Lounge, some work potentially on the McIsaac Way Link, Trestle Link Park, and Chippewa Park. We're giving names to all of these different areas just to sort of help us understand where they're located. So, okay, so the banners, we've identified and have 3 prominent local artists who have offered to give us their artwork to create new banners in the town. So we're currently working on that initiative. It's in progress, but it's very exciting. And if everything works out and the prices come in, it's going to be a really beautiful, beautiful project. So on the town dock, what we would like to do there is add planters with trees, similar style planters to the ones we already have on the fitness trail. We're constantly trying to, keep everything that we do a consistent theme and a consistent look. We'd like to add more benches along the town dock, and new attractive garbage receptacles that match the other street furniture. So this is a plan of where we would like to place new benches. Graphically, it's probably easiest to see the trees, the green locations. So, and beside each tree, we would put a new bench. There currently are benches on the town dock that have backs on them. And there's also an A-frame bench under the gazebo. So the new benches that we're proposing benches that don't have backs on them so that there's a good variety of seating on the town dock, and as well allows people to sort of choose which direction they'd like to face, whether they'd like to face the sunset or whether they'd like to face in and see people walking up and down. So there's 4 locations that we're proposing, 2 planters and 2 trees. At the end, just 1 planter with 1 bench, new bench, because there's already 2 at the end. So in general, the locations that we're looking at are where these large bollards, where the large bollards are, or the dot where you tie in, just filling in that space a bit. But again, talking with the Waterfront Advisory Committee to make sure that these benches and planters don't impede the actual dock, the boats using the dock. So the second location is the Dock Lounge. So this is currently where we already have the red chairs. What we'd like to do there is just enhance the base really and make it feel more like a living room sort of area. So maybe adding some stamped concrete. We'd like to replant the gardens that are in behind. They're full of hostas right now. We'd like to replant that, and then add planters around the utility box. So the McIsaac Way Link, we really feel that this is almost a stopping point on the trail for people that are at the town dock. So what we would love to see is connecting the trail on either side of it by using interlocking pavers or paving stones that kind of create a visual and to show you that the trail continues along and over that road. I was in Midland, and they have actually in the winter. And so the little insert picture is the paving stones that they use in Midland at all of their intersections. So something like that is what we'd like to propose. Obviously their climate is the same as ours, so they're working there, so that's great. So Trestle Link Park. So this is the area as you're coming up over McIsaac Way, where the picture on the top is looking at McNabb's Lumber. So there's a little triangular piece there, which the town owns. And what we would like to do there is insert another planter box that's similar to the ones up on James Street, so that it's sort of a bit of a link between the James Street parking lot, living room benches, we call them, and this Trestle Link Park. At the Chippewa Park, we sort of feel like these planters have sort of lived their life, I guess. And we'd actually proposed to cut back some of the planters there so that it opens up the gazebo visually and also the lighthouse. Actually, and that would allow us to actually add some more parking, which is always needed down at the town dock. It would be a bit of reduced maintenance for Parks and Rec. And just kind of create that more as a usable park. We feel that area is really underutilized. So I just wanted to shout out to our amazing volunteers that tend to the summer gardens. We're always looking for more volunteers. So if anyone wants to come out on Saturdays or at the end of May, help us plant, you're always welcome. It's a great time. Also wanted to thank you, Town of Parry Sound and the Downtown Business Association for helping us support these local initiatives. It means a lot to us, and we're here. Looking forward to another successful growing season. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there more, or was
Yeah,
that?
there's more.
Okay, all right.
Just quick. I just wanted to make mention to council some of the events that we have planned for 2025. So we'll have Maple Syrup Festival first on May 3rd. We have discussed partnership again with the cruisers for the downtown car show on Tuesdays. They're on board for that. Brand new partnership with the Town of Parry Sound. Canada Day isn't typically it is downtown technically, but it's usually at the Stockey Center and really nowhere else in downtown. So we're actually working with Jamie and April to have Canada Day on the main street of downtown as well. We will do Summer in the Sound again in July. We'll also have the Witches Walk in our arsenal of events this year officially, and as well as Girlfriends Weekend in November. So we've tried to pick some times that are mostly typically on the off season to try to drive some business into the downtown when other than the July festival. And then how we get around doing that and letting everybody know is through marketing. And so Krista's the best one to tell you about that part.
Ani, hello.
All right.
I was going to stand, but it's best to sit because you want me to use the microphone, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And Errol, yeah, okay. So primarily I'm going to speak to social media, but we obviously use social media for more than just its intensive purposes of scrolling through and hitting a like. So there is some marketing elements that are included in the report. The report was created about 2 weeks ago, so there are some things that are probably little tidbits I'll add in as needed when you go through. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask as well. There are 3 social media channels that we use on the regular. We used to have a 4th, which is AKA Twitter, but X, and we're not using it as much. It is still available and we'll have some updates, but our stats continue to show us that the other 3 we were using were just more beneficial and better received. So Facebook continues to be our main source of daily activity. We have a lot of opportunity to try different things on there because it's been our longest standing platform used from the DBA. And so we have been lucky to recently have tried a couple of ads. So originally everything was very organic until about the past year and a half. Then we started to have some paid ads. We can speak to that more specifically if you're looking for those details, but it is something that we're just getting into and still learning about. We have noticed that by increasing our reels in our posts, especially leading up to an event, is really more effective than just a picture or 2 and text. So that's where our focus has been and will continue to be until we see that we need to adjust that for our algorithms. Instagram, as you know, I talked about, I think previously, is something that we have really seen a lot of growth in as well. And but it continues to be a different audience. So we have the same message that goes out on all 3 or 4 pending the post, and they're all different audiences. And so for that reason, we're always going to continue to have the same message, so that, you know, if you are somebody that doesn't have Facebook, you're still seeing that same message. It's not that, you know, I have to have this one platform in order to access the message or the event that we're trying to share. Reels as well are something that do very well on Instagram. LinkedIn, I've continued to talk about it being a hidden gem. It is something that we're able to use. We get different analytics than we were. Meta is the person that oversees Facebook and Instagram. So you're always going to be confined to what they have. LinkedIn has a completely different source of algorithms and stats that we are quite interested in what we get from that and how we can use it moving forward. Just as we were sitting in the meeting here, I showed April a stat that came up. We have 22 different searches just for downtown Parry Sound this week alone, which is pretty awesome because we've only been on it for just over a year and a bit. And so that's exciting to us that people are searching for us. So it means we're doing something right in our algorithm, showing up in people's feeds, being shared properly. And that's exciting to us, especially because it's all been organic. There's some highlights. Some of them were on all 3 platforms. Some of them were we're just on 1 or 2. I'll speak quickly to most of them. The top one was a great photo Ruth Downs gave us that you'll see is actually on our Facebook cover right now. It did really well, and that was just a photo by somebody in the public that happened to be honored that we wanted to use her photo on our socials. We had the one, we did a partnership, just a partnership post about your overnight work that you were doing on the roads. And believe it or not, it was one of our best shared posts. I don't know why, but we were happy to be able to do it. We have also some of the images when we were explaining what a BIA is. We have a lot of people that don't understand what the radius and the details of what downtown Parry Sound is. So we were able to take that image that I know is hard to see, but it's the one just up there, the white, purple, and green. And by doing it and focusing in a little bit, it was a really big education piece for us, which was important for people to understand what the DBA is all about and how you are part of the DBA, or how if you're outside of that radius. We have some branding colors that we use as well. You'll notice there's the sort of pink, orange, and yellow one, and that was a lot of our colors that we chose for Summer in the Sound. So that has its own color. When we did our Women's Day, we had a different color. We were happy to be working with the town of Parry Sound when we had to pivot a little bit, a word that I didn't think I'd use again. But when we had to pivot for the parade, and so we're happy to be able to work with you and share some of those details about those changes that were kind of made last minute and getting the information out to the public. More recently, we've had some posts that have been about people spending money in downtown Parry Sound. Really well received, both the advertising of it and then the draw that our chair did with April for the 2 prizes of $250 downtown dollars. So that is a promotion that it sounds like is very well received in the January and February months. There's more there, but you get the gist of it. Our historical photos continue to do well for us as well. So those are just highlights from the past year. We do have different marketing goals, 3 of them listed there. Original content, obviously the more that we can create on our own, the better. Our timing, we have a lot of different, we put a lot of time and effort into when we're going to post, why we're going to post, and who we want to reach. So spend a lot of time getting into the nitty-gritty details of what's important and why we want to make the post when we do. Sometimes that's waiting. We waited till after Family Day because we knew on Family Day it was nicer weather. People would be outside. They wouldn't be sitting on their phones the way they might be when they're back in the office. So we take all those details into consideration. And of course, analytics, we do very specific event analytics and look at those campaigns and again, look at them differently for each platform. So those are 3 things that we take into consideration when April and I sit and make our plan on a regular basis. So we have all of that at the forefront as we make those decisions. Giftscape is something April spoke of. I know we were excited. We've used it 3 times so far. Successfully, and we're going to do it a couple more times. There was a recent announcement about how we're going to handle some of Maple Fest. We did the hot chocolate challenge recently with you. We used it, original rollout was for Girlfriends Weekend, and of course future use, which will be for us to use it for the directory. And then we are actually sort of spearheading, and by we, I should say April, the Downtown Parry Sound is leading the charge for all BIAs in Ontario to really use Driftscape. And we're getting to know just a little bit about what that program means and what we can get from it. But so far, we've been really impressed with what we've received. I won't bother spending too much time going into it. There are some details that are good from each of those 4 platforms that we have that are just exciting things that have happened to us, most of it organically. And, organically is where we want to be, because when we want to make those paid ads, we have to sit there and talk about a budget and how that rolls out. So the more we can do on our own and get people following us and get people wanting to see our content, the better. Finally, I think I talked about branding and original content. We try to brand every event from colors, which you see we do a lot of blue. We do all of our shades that come in our logo. That is our main thing when we're trying to create an image ourselves. Branded, as I spoke to, Girlfriends Weekend had a theme this past year about jeans. And so we were happy to have the denim and diamonds theme. And that was sort of ran through all of our events. And alternatively is when we're branding with partners, we want to make sure that we're using their branding and they're using our branding. So we've had a lot of successful events. More recently would have been the International Women's Day, which we had a lot of partners that we were very happy to work with. So those are important to us, as well as we try to build our brand and work with their brand. Wrapping up in 2025, we have some goals. We're going to continue our success with Driftscape. We have a partnership that was just recently announced with Canadore College and West Parry Sound Community Support Services. Really awesome program for our community, and West Parry Sound Community Support Services is moving into downtown. So it's even more of a neat thing to be working with them while they're moving down, but also to be doing a project that's part of the beautification committee. So it's a really interesting tie-in. Image retention by local photographers. So we've had a lot of great people. Candy Studios has come out and done some work for us. And we have a few others in our back pocket, and we'll continue to build our sort of arsenal of photos that we can use as we're creating images, and that we own those and we're able to do what we want with them as we advertise our events. We're going to continue to pursue some paid campaigns on our other social media channels, continuing our partnership with many local businesses. The Chamber is one of our big partners, and of course the Town of Parry Sound. And these are all things that we're going to continue to work on and try to build our projects with them. Finally, our data and analytics that we bring up at every marketing meeting. So that is what helps us stay on plan. That's what helps us stay on target, and what allows us to make those decisions when we do want to make the spend finally when it comes down to the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I only have one question. That was the end of your presentation?
It
That's everything?
was. I'm sorry.
No, just everybody together there. It's all good.
Yeah.
So the planters and everything you're planning for the town dock, that sort of thing, they can be all bolted down? Okay, good. Thank you. Well, wind, but we have some people that think they're really funny, and want to see how long it takes them to sink or something like that. I don't know. So usually we have to have everything chained or bolted down on there.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Councillor Borneman.
While we've got you here, this comes up every now and again. A number of years ago, the town and the DBA entered into an MOU. Is that still alive and well, pertinent, tossed out with the bathwater? Where are we going with that?
So it is a document that hasn't, I think it needs a little bit of updating. Mr. Kearns and I have talked about that. So we just need to nail down some time and just make sure that it's still relevant. Things change, weather changes, times change, projects change, or projects are added, that we should probably just make sure that that stays up to date on both sides.
Okay, good. Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate all the hard work that has been done for the volunteers in reference to the DBA. But it was also my understanding at the last waterfront meeting that the ideas that are presented here will not only be going to operations, but will also be going to the accessibility committee to provide input also, because certainly, for example, the benches, there's concern there. And I will say myself, I think there's some really lovely ideas here, but I also think, and no doubt it's a living a plan to happen, but I think also we need to look at some sort of bicycle parking there. I don't think that has been included in the plan. And also, I think it's really important that we remember also the indigenous nature of our community. And I really don't see that in the plan. I know I made a comment before even about the signage of the 7 grandfathers, that needs to be put into the plan. But I'm glad that it is a living document. But as stated, what is being presented here is an idea, but there's still going to be more input, because I think there are some things that are going to need to be tweaked.
That's right. So initially, when Brenda first put this plan together, we did sit down with Dave Thompson for some initial concerns. And then Dave did get us in contact with Mike. And so that's our next step, is to figure out what the timing is with some of the work to be done on the dock and with the cruise ships coming in. So yes, this is an idea, but we do recognize that we're not going to be putting them in. So the logistics and all of those things still need to get worked out. The indigenous feathers that you're talking about, the work is actually that is planned to be done is on the other side. So they wouldn't be touched at all.
What I'm saying, though, because it's a living plan, it seems to me it's possible that there could be even some more examination of some other indigenous aspects besides the signage for the feathers, because I think this is a community that we want to embrace and certainly present that information to anybody visiting, as well as people in our community, how important that is of our community. So I think it needs to be in the plan. Thank you.
Councillor Ashford.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I was really excited. I saw this in the minutes from the Waterfront Advisory Committee, and you're checking all my boxes except, of course, string lights. I'd love to have more string lights all around town. But the one question I did have is I was chatting with one of the board members from the cruisers earlier today, and it's been amazing to be able to use the downtown for the cruise nights, and they've had so much more donations given. They're able to give a sizable donation, not just the hospice this year, but also to the food bank. So it's been going really well. One of the concerns is just, as I think we're all dealing with, is volunteers and trying to get people out there. And it's, 100% of the people want to do it, 10% want to show up and kind of make it happen, right? Is there anything that you guys are doing or can be done, even maybe as part of the beautification? I don't know if we can do something to make it easier for the road usage or anything. Is there anything kind of in the works to help make sure that continues to be such a successful part of the community?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sorry for my wordiness. The cruisers, is there anything that's kind of going on specifically for them to try to help make sure that that goes well and continues as part of the plan?
Yeah, so I've had many talks with Wayne, who is my contact, even when he was on vacation. I know that they are also struggling with volunteers themselves. That's really hard for everybody. My understanding is that they are wanting to participate and be on the street. I do have this stats if anybody wanted to see them. You're right, they did give back to the community like 4 times what they normally do with their fundraisers, and because they just had a bigger space to host that with. So the board is in support of having events in downtown and supporting those that don't involve just me. So the Cruisers is one organization that brings an event into downtown. Art in the Park is one festival. So all of those organizations, however, we're able to help continue their success, will definitely help.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? No? Oh. Sorry about that. Thank you for the deputation and all of your deputations. Very much appreciated, and hopefully people watch this and you can plug on social media that you were on the council at the council meeting, and hopefully people tune in and watch it, right? Yeah. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Reports, we'll start with Councilor McDonald tonight.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be quick. I don't have any council related meetings that I attended. But I would like to congratulate the U18 two rep teams of Shamrocks for advancing to the finals in their playoffs. And I think it's the U18B rep team that's advanced to the OMHA Red Hats as well. So congratulations to them.
Councilor Barnum?
I think he was reading my notes. I've been much of my time's been occupied the last number of days with preparation for interviews, and today a long day of interviewing for an administrator's position at Belvedere Heights. Keep you posted with respect to the outcome of that, hopefully in the very near future. I want to pass on my condolences to the family of Joe Robinson, who previously served for a good number of years as the fire chief in the town. Mr. Robinson was one of the real nice guys, and I'm sure he'll be missed broadly across the community. While I'm thinking about this, and after tonight's deputation, Mr. Harris, I'm hoping that we can put Lakeland on our calendar for an annual deputation. We are a significant shareholder in the company. We don't see quite as much of them as what we used to. I think the only real public meetings are with respect to rate applications. So coming to council and updating us on whatever is going on in that industry, it, to me, seems to be a good opportunity for both council and the public. And finally, I'm sure Councillor McCann and Councillor Keith will have more to say on this, but I hope public recall that tomorrow night is the follow-up meeting of the Waterfront Master Plan from 6 to 7:30 at the Charles W. Stockey Center. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor McCann.
And Councillor Warnerman's been reading my notes. No real meetings to report on that are noteworthy here at this in the chambers, but a couple of things I would like to mention. Of course, one is on behalf of the Waterfront Advisory Committee. We're inviting you to the open house tomorrow at the Stockey Center. You'll probably recall the kickoff we had back in October. Tremendous turnout for that. People were very, very interested in what was going on, and the whole thing was high on folks' radar. And on our website, you can review the town, the waterfront master plan. And it says on our site, such a plan describes and illustrates the vision of the future of the waterfront and sets out principles to guide decision-making and investment. And throughout this whole thing, you'll note that the authors of this plan, town staff, mayor and council, are very much committed to maintaining public access along our beautiful shoreline. But it's up to you to make it work. And we certainly are in a growth mode. We want to do this right. So there's a bit of magic involved to striking the balance between green space, public access, and development. This happens with the people of Parry Sound and area. And so I hope to see you out at the Stockey Center tomorrow. Tomorrow evening from 6 until 7:30. I don't know that refreshments are being served, but this should be a worthwhile thing for your time. Councillor Borneman sort of shook my memory as well, that I would like to send condolences to the Robinson family on the passing of Joe. I never really got to know him personally. I did meet him and talk with him a few times, and my experiences were always very pleasant with him and his wife. So our condolences to him. And one more thing, robins and cardinals have been seen and heard. So if they know something we don't, I think it's safe to say that spring is here.
The red-winged blackbirds are back, so it's a good sign. Yeah. Next we
count.
Next we have Councillor Bileski, who's just back from Mar-a-Lago or whatever. Playing
No. I really do not have anything to report as far as the meetings I went to. Anything. I must make a comment though. Last week it was reported there was a bit of a trouble with the boards at the arena. One area where if you tried to swing the pucks around the board, it would bounce out, and they thought it would be a deference to them. So they asked me if I'd look into it, and I met with April McNamara, and she had the contractor up Monday and fixed it. So they were very, very pleased with it. It was a very fast response. I think it was Friday I met with her, or Thursday, probably Thursday. And, but they fixed it to report that everybody was happy with it anyway. And they're going, I have to go back at it again once the ice goes out, but they've done what they needed to do for now. And that's mine. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Councillor Ashford.
Thank you. Just coming off of March break, there was an amazing amount of activities going on for young people throughout March break between the town, the museum, and the library. My kids were complaining to me that there was overlap, that there was just so much going on that they wanted to go to things at the same time. So just a wonderful work from our community over the last week. And then in addition to that, it just seems like there's so many activities coming up for this summer for young people to do too. So I encourage everybody to take a look at the town website on what's going on with our rec. Is the one that caught my eye is Old School Roller Skating Club. So they got that set up for a 6-year-old and up. My oldest is 5, so she was a little disappointed, but she's excited. Hopefully it goes well. But they got that, beach volleyball, all kinds of things to sign up and do. And Councillor Keith, I think, will mention too, we're getting excited for the painting of the ice coming up at the BOCC in the next little bit. So take a look at that website, take a look at the town Facebook. There's just so many things going on. It's hard to keep up with them all. There's one committee meeting that I was at for our pool and recreation facility, and it's going along great. Again, everyone sees the building as they go by, and it's nice to see more that the snow is dropping. They're telling us that the building envelope is starting like literally this week and next week. So you'll start to see it getting enclosed in, and the steel and the roof is going to be going up in the next couple of weeks as well. And then the swimming pool is summer, so we should be July. You'll see, I don't know how to put a giant swimming pool in, but whatever happens, we'll be able to start seeing that kind of thing going on in no time. Let's hope it comes in one piece. That'd be amazing to see if we can get that baby in the building somehow. And then another one that kind of relates to Councillor Keefe, something that she does to inspire people in our community quite a bit, which I think we can't thank her enough for, is I was a bit of a proud dad, and my little one, as the snow started to melt, decided that it was time to take care of the community. And she grabbed a garbage bag and insisted, weather wasn't to my liking, but we were out there, and she collected a full garbage bag on River Street to make sure our community looks good. So I encourage everybody to follow her example. And jump out there and see if there's anything you can do to help out in the community. The last thing I have in my report today is a bit of a sad note. I mentioned a little while ago, we got a young lady in our community, Erica, who has been diagnosed with cancer and is undergoing treatment at Sick Kids right now. And it's a hard one. They're doing everything they can to save her life right now. And it's a hard one for her family, a hard one for her. And it's hard enough when adults kind of go through chemo and all these different things. And it's even harder for a little one. So they've been doing online auctions and different things for her. If you take a look on Facebook, it's called Erica's Army. But the big one right now is on the 22nd. At the Parry Sound Inn and Suites, they have a giant yard sale. So that's something we always loved to do when we were kids with our family, is we go on a big yard sale trip on Saturdays. So this Saturday, head on over to the Parry Sound Inn and Suites from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. and overpay for things as much as you can and see if you can get some deals, and then add $5 to your deal. Make sure you overpay to make sure that all the proceeds for this is going right to Erica to help keep her comfortable and pay for her lodging and food and things while she's on a 10-month cancer treatment program in Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keith.
Yes, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. I did have one meeting to attend. Unfortunately, it was canceled, and woe is me. So in turn, what I did was I certainly attended some of the activities of the March break. I also attended, which I was very impressed with, was the museum. And certainly the different rooms and the exhibits there were quite interesting. And at 5 p.m., I went back to also be available to recognize the event of volunteer firefighters. And certainly that display that is there right now, the exhibit, is really quite interesting, informative. And they even had a snow jet there. It's a snowmobile. And I thought that was kind of cute, the way they had that presented there. I attended the funeral of Joe Robinson, and I have to say it was a really lovely service. And I think that it's already been mentioned what a service he had been to our community, and certainly the lowering of the flags also showed the respect that we in the community have for Joe. I attended the library today, and I found that very interesting. And I think actually lots of children should come out, and probably some adults too, when they have an event like this. And it was actually a look-see-feely sort of thing, because a farmer had brought in 3 little chicks, and these little chicks, the children were quite interested in seeing them when they were so small. But what I think is rather interesting for anybody, and frankly, I would put a lottery on it myself, would be that on this Saturday, they are hoping 3 of the eggs that are in the incubator, that one of them might be hatching. So I'd have a lottery going on there for myself to raise money. And I think that certainly would have been a good way for the library to use some more funds to purchase some of their needs. I hope everybody truly will remember to go to the waterfront committee tomorrow night, the open house between 6 and 7:30 p.m. I personally put up some flags. I've sent some stating exactly the flyers, exactly what's going on, and hoping people will come, besides verbally and sending out some emails to say, hey, let's be there to provide your input. I heard a comment about spring and the little birdies, and I'm sure we all know, or maybe from school days, that March 20th is the first of spring, so maybe we'll hear a lot more. March 30th is the day at the BOCC where there will be the ice painting between 1 and 3 p.m. It is required that you register your children ahead of time. I guess as an adult, if you want to go out and pay, you want to pay that $5, I'm sure they won't refuse you. It'll take your money probably pretty quick. And so that you can paint away. And I hope there'll be a good participation on that. I certainly am glad to hear tonight that when Councillor Bolesky has spoken to Ms. McNamara, she was very efficient in getting things done for the board. And so I think it's always important for us to say the positives about the staff when it seems like they're really getting on the ball to get something done quickly. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, council, staff, and public. March 7th and 8th, I was in Collingwood for an Ontario Small Urban Committee meeting. Or meetings, I should say. We went over the programming for the conference, attended to regular committee business, and had a tour of the facility where the conference will be had. The conference will be held in Collingwood from April 30th to May 2nd, and next year the conference will be here in Parry Sound. So hoping some of the staff can attend the conference so that we can get an idea of logistics and everything for next year. March 12th was, as mentioned by Councillor Ashford, the Recreation Complex meeting. Building construction is moving along as planned, and we're made aware that tariffs should not affect the cost because the majority of the material and everything has already been tendered. Yeah. Monday, May 17th, I had a meeting in the morning with AMO staff, a group called Civics, and some municipal staff from other areas in the province about a pilot project that is being worked on to go into schools that will allow students to better understand local government and what municipal governments do. And so this would happen this spring, and then there would be something also for local government week in the fall. I would also like to pass on my condolences to the Robinson family as well in the passing of Joe Robinson. He was our fire chief for many, many, many years, building inspector, PUC commissioner, and a well-respected member of the community. And he gave a lot to this community to make it better. And we certainly appreciate that. So, yes, that's my report. On with the meeting, and we've got to get moving. Moved by Councillor McCann, moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor McCann, that the 2024 statement of remuneration paid to council and appointed board members attached to Schedule A be accepted. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McDonald. The council accept the bid from Wessex Incorporated in the amount of $30,910, including taxes, for sewer flushing and cleaning of approximately 24,728 meters of sanitary sewer, this being the lowest compliant bid of 10 bids received. Any discussion? Councillor Keith and then Councillor Boleski.
Yes, my question is for Mr. Cairns. I can appreciate this is the lowest bid, and my issue isn't exactly about the lowest bid, but it refers to this matter. And in your report, it indicates that one of the issues being wet wipes, people putting them down evidently the drains, and that in turn costs us more money, et cetera, et cetera. And the bottom line is here, have we considered doing some sort of an education program in that area? Because it just seems to me that sometimes when people flush, they don't think about what they flush.
Through your worship, it's certainly been something a number of organizations right across North America, frankly, have tried to deal with through education campaigns. I think that's something we can certainly undertake. I do know that Mr. O'Donnell and myself and all of the staff that work in the area are frustrated by the marketing that happens with these things because they are marketed as flushable. They are not flushable. The only thing that should go down that's flushable is toilet paper that's designed to. Otherwise, it does cause there are studies, and certainly, yeah, I think we'll take that under advisement and certainly come back with something because it's a destructive thing that costs an awful lot of money. It actually has environmental impacts as well with bypasses, equipment breakdown, and it certainly shortens the life cycle of the equipment within our collection and treatment systems as well.
So my follow-up, would you have an idea when that might be coming back? Would you think by the fall we should be able to figure that out for some sort of an education program?
Through your worship, I think we can probably be ahead of the fall.
Councillor Boleski.
Thank you, your worship. I just wanted to comment on this staff report. I found it very well written. It supplied me with every bit of information that I needed on this. It very well documented on what needed, what's being proposed and everything. I want to comment on the actuality of it, I guess, and commend the generator of this report. It's a great staff report. Thank you.
Your worship, I just want to make it clear that it was not my report. That is Mr. O'Donnell's report. So
Mr. O'Donnell's in the back of the room there, so welcome. Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Item 922, moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McDonald. Whereas the town of Parry Sound owns and operates the Parry Sound Drinking Water System MOE designation number 22000000585, which has been categorized as a large residential drinking water system, and whereas Ontario Regulation 170-03 as amended under the Safe Drinking Water Act requires, according to Schedule 22's summary reports for municipalities, that all large municipal residential drinking water systems have a report prepared no later than March 31st of each year, addressing the items detailed in the regulation, and is given to the members of council in the case of a drinking water system owned by a municipality. Therefore, be it resolved, the council of the town of Parry Sound hereby acknowledges receipt of the report titled Town of Parry Sound Tony Agnello Water Treatment Plant Large Municipal Residential Drinking Water System Summary Report 2024, as prepared by Kyle Hall, Manager of Water Systems. Any discussion? Councillor Keith?
Yes, I have a question, and it's on page 3, and it has to do with the corrective action. So it would be under point 2. It indicated that there was evidently a bit of a slip there. On 3 occasions, a free chlorine residential grab sample was not collected, and it showed that management in turn trained employees so they would be able to do it proper the next time, and that is commendable that the training occurred. But what I'm wondering, is there any other consequence when something like that happens? Like, is there a fine or something, or the fact that you train the employees so that doesn't happen again, is that sufficient for standards?
Your worship, I'll defer to Mr. Hall, who is with us online.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question. Yeah, that's something that we went over with staff and reviewing the protocols to do those sampling. So hopefully that, yes, we're not going to see that happen again.
So my follow-up question is there any other consequence, or the fact that staff was trained in that so it doesn't happen again, is that sufficient, or is there any other consequence? Is that the end of it?
For you, Mr. Mayor, that would be an in-house thing that we would do. As far as the ministry, it would be a progressive discipline.
Councillor Borneman?
So, Mr. Hall, these reports are always lengthy and somewhat technical. Can you tell the public whether or not the water system in the town of Parry Sound is working as expected and adequately through this past year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think you can see from some of the monthly average daily flows, we're seeing a slight increase annually, overall production, but very minimal. And yeah, plant production is doing well.
Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Counselor Keith and seconded by Counselor Ashford, whereas World Autism Day is recognized on April 2nd, 2025 in Canada, and Autism Ontario, being one of the largest collective voices representing the autism community, helps all autistic individuals and families in their communities to have access to meaningful support, information, and connections. And whereas autism impacts more than 135,000 individuals in Ontario, representing 1 in every 50 Canadian children and youth, influencing not only the lives of autistics, but also their friends, families, and communities, making it crucial to raise awareness and acceptance, provide support, and promote a more inclusive society. And whereas autism is a diverse spectrum that varies widely among individuals and can change over time, which highlights the uniqueness of every autistic individual, emphasizing the need for understanding and support tailored to their specific needs. And whereas Autism Ontario is the leading source of information and referral on autism, and since 1973 has been providing support, information, and opportunities to thousands of families and individuals across the province. And whereas Autism Ontario is devoted to raising public awareness about autism and addressing the everyday challenges faced by individuals with autism, their families, and the professionals who work alongside them. And whereas as Autism Ontario urges everyone to recognize and celebrate the unique differences and needs of others, fostering an inclusive environment where all individuals can participate fully in activities and discussions, creating a society that values and includes everyone. And now therefore the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound hereby recognizes April 2nd as World Autism Day, while committing to embrace awareness and acceptance today and every day throughout the year. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Ashford and seconded by Councillor Keith that bylaw number 2025-7482, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a transfer payment agreement with His Majesty the King in right of Ontario as represented by the Solicitor General regarding funding under the Mobile Crisis Response Team MCRT Enhancement Grant Program for 2024-25 be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Ashford, seconded by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion? Councillor Ashford?
I just wanted to clarify, I think I have it right, but it looks like we've received this grant. We've been all approved for it.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so we received one round of funding for the grant, but this one, so after we finish up with the transfer payment agreement, then we'll receive it, and then CMHA will submit their costs, but I believe the program's already like in progress, and it's just a matter of funding that. The town will receive 100% of the cost of the program, which is estimated at about 120,000. And this funds full-time 7 days a week of a crisis worker who can respond to calls related to people in crisis that need help, and reduce calls for service for the OPP. So that's really the objective of that program.
Well, with that, I think this is pretty exciting news, because I don't think this is one of the top 10 programs that's been happening in Parry Sound in the last few years, that it's making a difference to so many people. And the only criticism that has been around Parry Sound is that it was kind of a 5-day-a-week thing. And when I saw that this was a change and it's going to be able to do different hours for people, this is making the world a difference to so many people's lives in our community. So thank you to everybody who's kind of put this together and put this work up.
Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you. All I would add to it is just a couple of things. This program, I believe, has been in effect a couple of years. And certainly it started out it's only been out a few years. It started out as a pilot project, and one had to see as to what the success rate would be here. And of course, hoping that it would be quite successful because it had been used in other communities. And we certainly saw the benefits of this program just last year again, when there were issues downtown. We were trying to figure out how to best help people to make things flow better, shall we say, in the downtown center where people felt safe, but at the same time, vulnerable people have needs, and how can this be met? So yes, the 7 days a week certainly is a great thing. What I'm also wondering about is, because I realize there's a process involved here in respect to the money and how things get divvied up so that this can happen. But I'm wondering if the application, because this grant will end in November of 2025, is there a way that we can kind of get on the wagon now so we can start this process? So then maybe by November 20, before even November, in late October 2025, we're already looking at where money is going to go for 2026. Is that a possibility, Ms. Phelps?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the application for the next funding year has already been submitted, so we've already been collaborated with the OPP and CMHA to submit that. It's just, we apply and then there's a time lapse before we get the agreement and everything is in place, but in progress.
Thank you very much to hear that. And I just want to say, I know at the last board meeting of the West Parry Sound OPP Detachment Board, this matter was discussed again as to how successful this program is working. So I'm glad that everybody's working and that it should be continuing. Thank you.
Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Boleski, second by Councillor Ashford, that bylaw number 2025-7483 being about to authorize a guarantee pursuant to a letter loan agreement in respect of financing to be provided to the West Parry Sound Recreation and Cultural Center Joint Municipal Services Board be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Boleski, second by Councillor Ashford, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Ms. Phillips, just a brief summary as to.
Okay. So the bylaw before council is to authorize the execution of the town's portion of a guarantee and the associated letter loan agreement with the Bank of Nova Scotia to provide funding for during the capital works of completing the West Parry Sound Recreation Recreation and Cultural Center. The total financing is 13.5 million. And the interest rate is at prime less 0.65%. Each municipality is being asked to proportionately guarantee their portion excluding McKellar. So in order to get the line of credit, all the municipalities have to agree to their line of credit or their guarantee for the line of credit. So Town of Parry Sound's portion of the guarantee is 3.9 million approximately, and an adjusted annual repayment limit has been provided to council tonight as an attachment 8 or attachment 4 to the report. So that's a requirement of approving the guarantee. Both scenarios show that the guarantee is within the town's annual repayment limit. So the letter of agreement and the guarantee have been reviewed by legal counsel, and the bylaw has been prepared together with legal counsel on behalf of the town. So an opinion to that effect has been circulated before the meeting today as well. The letter of agreement is consistent with the board's previous approval of the letter loan agreement substantially in the form of the attached. There are two small administrative amendments to the letter loan agreement that have been made since then. One is just that the number of days to prepare the financial statements changed from 150 to 180 days for the borrower and the guarantors. And in section 11.3, the word and requirement of obligors has been replaced with borrower to apply to the joint municipal service board rather than all of the municipalities. Some important changes have been proposed and accepted by the bank within the guarantee document of note. The most important of those includes the requirement to draw on the guarantees proportionately if required rather than from any one source of the municipalities. So those are just some items of note for council that have been amended or through proposing this recommended agreement and guarantee those that has gone on. So the other municipalities guarantees and associated letter loan agreement, as well as the bylaw passed by council tonight, then will be circulated for them to pass their share following tonight's meeting. Any questions related to that?
Councillor Ashford?
So then once each council has passed their share and signed off on their share, then I guess being the board treasurer, then you would sign an agreement with the clerk with Scotiabank. Is that when like the loan becomes active once everybody's signed off, or how does that work?
So the bank requires that each municipality actually sign the agreement and their guarantee, so it just wouldn't be effective until all of the guarantees were provided and the agreement was signed by each of the parties. And if they don't all do their part, then it wouldn't be complete, the agreement. Okay.
Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Ms. Phillips, thank you for all your work on that.
My pleasure.
Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Keith, that bylaw number 2025-7484 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with the Village of South River and the Township of Macker for the use and occupation of the EMS base located at 203 Highway number 124 South River be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Ashford and seconded by Councillor Keith that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Ashford that bylaw number 2025-7485 being a bylaw to amend the business and taxi license regulations bylaw 2023-7331 to remove the limit of number of available taxi cab licenses be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, seconded by Councillor Ashford, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor McCann.
Thank you. On Friday, when I was reviewing this, I got rather excited, and in fact, I sent an email to Chief Thompson and Ms. Kruger to say, this is great. I like this. I'm going to support it. I know that not long ago, we talked about deregulation and my concerns over that, but I think this is going to help even the field. And who knows, with free enterprise having an opportunity to play itself out, deregulation in the long run may or at least some of it may work out very well. My question is, I don't know that Ms. Kruger is on the line,
Yep,
so
she is.
she is.
Yep.
I'm just wondering how. I was surprised to read that people were approaching the town asking for a license, and it was a pleasant surprise for me to learn that. Is this true, and how often are we asked for to license vehicles?
Through your worship, this is actually the first time since I've been with Parry Sound that we've actually had interest in some new companies opening. As you know, we previously had another company that a few years ago was no longer in business. And so just recently we've been approached by 3 different individuals saying that they were interested in getting into the taxi business. Clearly the number limit of taxi cabs that we have has created a barrier, as most of them are currently with the one company that we have in service. So this amendment would allow that opening for some new companies, and this has been our first real interest in it. So this is good news for hopefully our taxi services.
Sure, and as a follow-up to that, and I think, I'm not sure whether I knew this or not, but it's not so much that you license the company, but you license the vehicles. Is that right?
Through your worship, correct, we license the vehicles as well as the drivers.
Oh, exactly, of course, yeah. No, that's great. Thank you very much for this.
Councillor Bolesky.
Thank you, Worship. Just one question. This doesn't exclude the existing companies from adding taxis to their own licensing?
Through your worship, it wouldn't limit the current company to adding vehicles. They are aware that this amendment was being brought forward, and they did not express interest at this particular moment to add vehicles, but this would lift the limit, so there would be unlimited number of licenses available after, if this amendment passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? All in favor? That's carried, none opposed. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that bylaw number 2025-7486 being a bylaw to amend section 4612 of the zoning bylaw 2004-4653 be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And it's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Mr. Rand, anything you want to add to this?
I'll be fairly brief, just being cognizant of time. So this bylaw has been on staff's radar for some time. It is in response to shortage housing in the community, and just looking at opportunities for creating sort of more streamlined approaches and some low-hanging fruit that we can do to hopefully promote and get some ancillary units constructed in the town. In the report, you'll note that there was only one constructed since 2021. We're aware of about 4 in town, but when you contrast that with the number of accessory dwelling units, which have been about 40 since 2021, we think that this may help with the creation of ancillary units.
Good. Thank you. Yeah. Any questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Borneman, that bylaw number 2025-7487, being a bylaw to appoint Sally O'Connor as deputy clerk, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. And we would like to welcome Sally O'Connor to the town of Parry Sound, and she is at the table over there. You may need to speak up so the owl will swing around. Oh, you are? Okay. Anyway, welcome. And Mr. Harris has some.
Yeah, it's certainly, Mr. Mayor, it's my pleasure to welcome Sally O'Connor to the town of Parry Sound's team. Sally's joining the town as a community engagement in deputy clerk role. The community engagement aspect of that role is a new position. As the title suggests, the town wants to not only share information with the public, but we want to engage with the public and the business community and get their input. So it's two-way communication we're hoping to achieve. Sally's got a lot of experience with strategic communications, community engagement, and various social media platforms that are available. We heard a bit about that from the DBA, and I'm sure there'll be some conversations following that presentation earlier this evening. So really look forward to working with Sally, and she started yesterday, and so 2 days on the job, but we're very delighted that she's here. Thank you.
Okay. If you have anything you want to.
Yes, Your Worship and esteemed council, thank you so much for the warm welcome. It is day 2 and already I'm feeling right at home. And you'll notice your flag is nice and wrinkle-free. There you go. It's really a pleasure to be here and an honor to be your new community engagement and deputy clerk, working with such a talented team of dedicated professionals at the Parry Sound town office. And I'm really excited. It's a great time to be involved in the town. There's a lot of exciting projects happening. So thank you so much. And feel free to reach out anytime.
Good. Thank you. And I think that the program that I'm working on with AMO, okay, with the civics group, community engagement is going to become very important because it will be working with the schools, especially the public schools, in just in the town of Parry Sound, and engaging with students, teachers, and working to have a better understanding, as I said in my report, a better understanding of municipal government, the jobs that are in municipal government, and what municipal governments actually do in the community. So I think we're going to have lots of work for you to do. Okay. Yes, Councilor McCann.
So thank you and welcome. To your credit, you spent some time living in the Sudbury area, so that's a plus for you. And I'm very passionate about community news and information and keeping people engaged. So I certainly am happy to welcome. I'm even more excited than all the taxi cabs that could come into town. So welcome and make yourself at home.
Yep. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. It's official. Moved by Councilor McDonald, second by Councilor Borneman, that bylaw number 2025-7488 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councilor Borneman, seconded by Councilor McDonald, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? And that is carried. So, prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, April 1st, 2025 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Seguin Street, entrance via Gibson Street. It will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website, and go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. And for Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. And as a reminder again, that the waterfront, public waterfront meeting is on the 19th, which is tomorrow night, and it's at 6 o'clock, starting at 6 o'clock. I do have to work until 6 o'clock tomorrow, so I will be late, just so everyone knows. At the Stocky Center. Bring your ideas, and that's wonderful. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.